Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. I'm working out some fighting words. So we got some good news. Terence Crawford will be leaving Top Rank in October. His contract is up or he's buying himself out. Either way, he's up out of there. I'm excited about it. I know you should be excited about it because there's a lot of potential fights for Terence Crawford. However, I'm not about to say what I think everybody probably thinks I'm going to say and says, now the fight with Spence, and he could fight Sean Porter, and he can fight Keith Thurman. He has all these possible matchups over here. Actually, I've been thinking about this, and I think a good move for Terence Crawford would be DAZN. Now, I know you're probably thinking, "What are you talking about? That's insane." Not really. I actually think it would be a good move for Terence Crawford. Let's see. So first, I'd probably say linking up with Eddie Hearn would be really good for Terence Crawford's career. Terence Crawford has not had a promoter who's supported him fully. Bob Arum, there's just nothing that I can say nice about him in the promotion of Terence Crawford. Eddie Hearn has a track record of taking fighters who were on the back burner or weren't getting any press or any publicity or weren't getting any fights and reviving their careers. A perfect example is Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. Prior to Eddie Hearn and prior to DAZN, Boo Boo was just kind of on the shelf. He was just a great fighter on the shelf. Nobody wanted to fight him. Nobody would say his name. And he was just sitting there, begging people, basically going to fights and begging for fights. And now look at him. He has a belt, and he's fighting frequently, at least twice a year, sometimes up to 3 times. So say what you like about Eddie Hearn, but one thing I will give Eddie Hearn credit for is he is for his fighters, period. He gets them fights, he gets them recognition, he gets them in title bouts. You can say whatever you like. Eddie Hearn gets a lot of bad press, but he's there for the fighters, and I'm there for whoever's gonna give me a good show. And he's shown that he can take somebody and revive their career. And I know you're probably thinking, well, Terence Crawford doesn't need his career revived. I would say no, he doesn't need it revived, but there's so much more you can do with his career. And unfortunately, just dealing with Top Rank, he hasn't actually had the opportunity to be as big in the sport as he could be. And, Terence Crawford is not the type of guy who's going to promote himself. And I think Bob wanted a fighter who's more of a self-promoter. But if you have a guy like Eddie Hearn on your side, Eddie Hearn does not mind being in front of the camera. Eddie Hearn does not mind bragging about his fighters. Eddie Hearn does not mind mentioning his fighters in the mix of anybody else's fight that's going on. Eddie Hearn is the ultimate promoter. I'm not saying he's a Don King, but if he keeps going the way he's going to be a Don King. He gets you into fights. He gets you into fights. I'm not saying he gets you into the best fights, but he gets your name out there. He gets you exposed. People will see you in action on a regular basis. And he builds you up. He builds your name up. He builds your brand up. This is what you want. This is what a guy like Terence Crawford needs. He'll do the fighting. He'll do the promoting. Not I'll do the fighting and the promoting. Terence Crawford is not a talker. He's definitely not a trash talker. That's not what he prefers. He prefers just to show up and let his hands do the talking. Well, that's great for Eddie Hearn. Trust me, that's great for Eddie Hearn. If you need an example of it, AJ doesn't do any trash talking. Eddie Hearn does all his trash talking. Eddie Hearn does all of AJ's trash talking. Imagine what he would do with Terence Crawford, because there's so many guys out there who are possible options and very available for Terence to fight. Not to mention, I believe DAZN has the money to put up to get these fights made. So that's another reason why I'm personally saying DAZN and Eddie Hearn as his promoter. So another reason why I would say that Terence Bud Crawford would be great for DAZN is because the UK bracket is so wide open with fresh talent. Fresh, brand new names and just fresh talent. In a deep talent pool at that. Contrary to what a lot of people may make it seem like, all the greatest fighters are at Showtime or something like that. No, there's a lot of good fighters in the UK. There's a lot of good fighters who fight on DAZN. Not to mention, Terence Crawford has a history in the UK. He fought Amir Khan, and he also fought Kell Brook. So he's already built a name for himself across the seas. So it's perfect for him. And just to name a few guys who are absolutely perfect to build up the brand of Terence Crawford with DAZN, let's just start with one guy, Josh Kelly. I mean, the dude is a fan favorite. He's super explosive and super creative in the ring. I mean, anybody's gonna come up to watch a Josh Kelly fight. Now, you put Josh Kelly versus Terence Bud Crawford, that's a sold-out arena. Another name, Conor Benn. Conor Benn, he is the son of the boxing legend Nigel Benn, and let's just say he lives up to the family name. He is the Destroyer, okay? Like, so those are two big names right there, but we can't forget Josh Taylor, who also just unified at 140 since he wants to move up, and he also said he would love to fight Terence Crawford. Again, we're talking about fan-friendly fights. We're talking about fights that are going to be remembered. You know, Gotti versus Ward, we're still talking about that fight. Thriller in Manila, we're still talking about that fight. You get Terence Bud Crawford in the ring with Josh Taylor, we'll be talking about that fight. Trust me, the way Josh Taylor fights, he's not ever going to be in a boring fight. Conor Benn is not ever going to be in a boring fight. Josh Kelly is never going to be in a boring fight. Win, lose, or draw, none of those three are going to be in a boring fight. You can't even say Terence Crawford's going to be in a boring fight. He is a finisher. He will get you up out of there. You're going to watch a lot of skill and a lot of technique, and then you're going to see a guy finish another guy. None of these guys are ever in boring fights, and they're constantly growing to their roster at the zone. So again, I think it's a really good strategic move. Now let me tell you why I think it's a good move for Terence Crawford. One, it will keep him in the spotlight. It'll keep him busy. He won't just fight like once a year. It won't be any of that action. With the talent that's over there with DAZN, he'll be fighting at least 3 times a year. Which a guy like Terence Crawford, he wants to stay active. I mean, he stays in the gym all year round. He's in great shape. He also brings. It would also give him a new fan base. Like I said, he's fought in the UK already with Amir Khan and Kell Brook. But if he's over there fighting with DAZN, he's going to be a regular over there. And if you're talking about building a guy up, what better way to do it than almost creating his own home over there and a second family, a second home over there in the UK? That would do that. And not to mention, it would earn him a lot of paydays. So why not? Like I said, these guys are big draws, they're big names, especially in the UK. They're big names and big draws. I believe you could sell out Conor Benn or Josh Taylor in the States, and it would be a sold-out arena if they're fighting Terence Crawford, hands down. It also allows Terence Crawford to show his skill on a regular basis. And he is in his, I want to say he's in his golden years because he's in his 30s, you know, and at this point, he needs to be thinking about, you know, monumental type fights. Now, I know you're going to say, well, Josh Kelly isn't the biggest name in the world. No, he isn't the biggest name in the world. But if I say a monumental fight, that means 2 guys who are going to come and show out. Not just, well, I got a big name and I got a big name and then we're going to make something happen. How many people knew who Mickey Ward was until he fought Gatti? Now we all know who Mickey Ward was because he was a warrior, and we're still thinking about that fight. I still watch that fight. I watch all 3 fights. Every time I watch one of the fights, I can't help but watch the other 2. So, and I didn't know who Mickey Ward was really until that fight happened. So it is true. You can bring a Josh Kelly over here. You can bring a Conor Benn to the States, which I think people in the States already know who Conor Benn is, not to mention who his dad is. So that's extra clout. But lastly, I would say Terence Crawford going over to the UK and making a name for himself and a home for himself in the UK with DAZN would do something to Showtime, but more particular, would do something to Earl Spence. You see, the whole drama between the two originally was Earl wanted more money. He's like, hey, people are coming to see me, and they're not coming to see you. So it's like a 60-40 deal. Well, if Terence goes over to the UK, builds a bigger fan base, starts racking up some wins with some really notable fights and some really notable names, well, then his stock rises. Now we're on an even playing field. Now, imagine, let's just say Terence Crawford goes over, he fights those three names that I mentioned in the UK. And then we have the Spence fight. After Spence is unified with, say, like Ugas. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, Earl Spence wins his fight against Manny Pacquiao. And he goes up against Ugas and he wins that belt as well. Now he's bringing all these belts and he's building this big name for himself across the pond. And they come together. That's spontaneous combustion, people. That's a big fight. That's a money fight. That's a mega fight. I'm not saying that's Fury Joshua. I'm not saying that's Fury Wilder. But I am saying for welterweights, that is a money fight. That's a money fight. I don't know if it's a $100 million fight, but I would say it's a $50 million fight. Both of those guys are going to come out of that fight paid. And we're going to come out paid because we get to see it and get to witness it. And we can, once and for all, say, you are the king of this division. But you tell me what you think down below. And as always, please like and subscribe.